And especially, the difference between a naturalistic image where, you've got to get it right. That really is where it's at. You want to give the viewer the experience as though they were there looking at it. So you really got to get your construction fundamentally woven into everything. And then you can play with the lighting, how you arrange, that becomes very important, but it's secondary to the fundamental realism that you're trying to capture. In the icon, remember, it's an aesthetical aesthetic. It's how you transfigure nature, how nature points beyond itself. That's the purpose of what we are doing as iconographers. So because we're pushing nature into revealing another realm, something beyond itself, the spiritual energies of God which are present in the material world, the world of light. So in the way in which we create this fluidity of the material world, if you think about it, matter in the icon is becoming very immaterial. It's being pushed beyond its limits. And so the way in which we compose becomes more important, more significant, has greater impact. So it's a sort of, both are necessary, you're quite right, but actually in the icon, we're pushing the constraints of nature down and raising up the fluidities which create impact and meaning. I've never said this before, but I like this. I'm glad this is recorded, so I'll probably never remember it. So Diane, you take those notes for me.
I just missed what we push the constraints of nature down and
raise up the fluidity of composition, because that's revealing the transfiguration of matter. Literally, we're taking nature, making sure it's there. That's why you need the foundation. So it's not abstract art where fluidity is everything. It's held in tension, and it's this sort of on the threshold between heaven and earth. It has to be on earth. It's got to be rooted, but it has to be aspiring to the world above. Now, Florensky talks about this in his own way. Florensky is quite difficult to sort of get into, and some people find him so esoteric as to be, not convincing. But I like Florensky because I think his mystical grasp of the world of matter, very akin to Teilhard de Chardin. Both of them were scientists, interestingly. So they were really wrestling with matter and the world of matter, but from the idea of the principles within, the principles of energy, of light, of the movement of evolution, the forces of creativity. It's something which I think is rarely talked about, really, especially in Christian circles, where this whole fundamentalist thing becomes the thing that everybody has to talk about. But when a scientist looks at the cosmos and looks at it from the level of the molecular right through to the cosmic, there are so many different levels. And if you look at, say, a blade of grass or a flower and the dynamics of the creative energies that hold that in place, that you examine under a microscope, that you make analysis of in terms of chemical structures, that's just the beginning. The scientist is really plowing into the very mysteries of the material world, which I think is fascinating. And Florensky, as an Orthodox priest who was also a scientist doing this, he talks about the inspiration in especially in iconographic art he talks about the dream world, and that we sort of aspire upwards to the dream world, and then in this sort of dream world, which is a band between then the heavenly, when we transcend that, we become inspired by the heavenly, and our work, our artistic work, takes on a sort of transfigured form. But when we reach up into the dream world, but from the earth, from our own materiality, he said that becomes the plaything of demons. So the imagination can become diabolical as well as something inspirational. And it's very interesting in looking at some people's work, say somebody like Francis Bacon, where, he's literally tearing the world of matter to shreds. It's a dreamlike world, but it's a sort of nightmare that's being incarnated, that's